So let's get rolling, especially for those that are amongst us that are barbecuers, which I think there's a lot. Yeah, so there's very negaya, very negaya stuff here. Okay, so now this is a new parak. Parrots, you have a l'chaim for a new parak? There we go. Okay, good. Now we can start the new parak.
I thought we have girly guys who do sous vide.
Yeah.
Sontag, don't talk about parrots because if he has his eyes closed and his hands tied behind his back, he'll drink you under the table any day of the week. So.
That's the nicest thing you've ever said about him there, Rebarn.
There you go. Okay, so so now we're gonna discuss all what the proper way is to roast the korban pesach. Yeah. So the Mishna says, on Ayin Dalid Amud Aleph.
So what I'm doing now doesn't count?
Yes, that's gonna be part.
Cast iron on a thing. Is that considered grilling or not?
That's bad.
Yeah, that's good.
Not for the korban pesach.
Parrots, that's the Mishnah.
There you go. We're mamish gonna discuss it, parrots. There we go. Perfect.
Was that with
hands on?
was that with beef tallow inside there also?
Who?
Beef tallow.
I have no idea what that.
It's some sort of gourmet type of fat made from the stuff that comes off of steak.
Okay, so let's see if parrots' frying here fits into the parameters of shechting a korban pesach. Yeah, so Ketzat telling us a pesach. How do you roast the korban pesach? Mavi'in shvud shel rimain. You have to bring a spit made out of pomegranate wood. V'toichay l'tzoich piv, and you stick it into the mouth of the animal. Ad base nikuvasai, right, until all the way to the opening where it goes to the bathroom. From a nice and eskrav espenemei of l'saycha, and then what you do is you stuff it. You stuff the insides and put it into the animal. He disagrees. Kimin bishul huza, that's like cooking it, because what's going to happen that's as the animals looked at like the pot, and you stuck all the insides inside the animal, so it's like cooking in a pot. What you have to do is you have to take the insides of the animal and put it on the outside. Right? So that's the first machlokes. Then you're not allowed to roast it, not on a spit and not on a grill. Right? Which we're going to see why that is. And the Gemara, so there was a Maisa that there was with the Rabbi Gamliel told Tevi Avdai to go roast it on the Askala. So obviously this story is a stira to the Mishnah. Because the Mishnah says you're not allowed to do it, then we bring the story that you can do it. So that's the Gemara is going to discuss. That'll be tomorrow's daf. Right? Okay, so that's basically the pasha of the Mishnah, the Machlokes, where you put the insides of the animal, and then that you can't roast it on metal. So the Gemara says, "V'nesi shel matras." Why can't you put it on a spit made out of metal? Okay, so then this is a very big yisoid in Hilchos Kashrus and had a kasher thing. So Aidi techam miktzasei cham kuloi. Since part of it is hot, then the entire thing will get hot. The kamatvi machmas hashvud, and then it's going to get roasted it's going to get cooked from the spit. It has to be straight fire and not roasted from anything else. So basically what's going to be is that if you're going to have a metal spit going with the animal going through, right, the sheep or the lamb going through the metal spit, so the metal is going to get hot. The outside of the metal that's sticking out of the animal's mouth is going to get hot. Then it's going to go in that heat, as everybody knows, metal conducts heat, and then inside the animal, the heated metal is going to cook the animal, cook the insides, but that's not roasted because it has to be straight fire, and that's not fire, that's heating through metal, which basically disqualifies what Peretz is doing now, right? So that's why, so therefore you have to put the whole thing on wood. Wood is not gonna conduct heat, and therefore the whole whatever's going to get cooked is going to get cooked straight from the fire. So what is this negaya? Let's go back and we'll discuss the halacha l'maaseh from this. V'nesi shel dekel. So it says, okay, so who says it has to be a pomegranate tree? So let it be a palm tree. So let's say shivi mafik maya. No, since it has these little cracks in it, so therefore it's going to let out water. And that water that drips out of wood, like sometimes for the pyromaniacs amongst us, those that make campfires or whatever, use wet wood. So you'll see the wood, when it goes into the fire, that wood, the water drips out of the wood. So that's going to end up cooking the korban pesach, and that's not good. It has to be roasted. Okay, so then bring a fig wood from a fig tree. No, that's also since it's hollow, the water is going to go out of it. And it's like cooking. Okay, so then bring made out of oak, carob, right? The boxer, v'shel shikma. What do you call it again? The shikma, sycamore, right?
Sycamore.
I guess that's the same. Yeah. So I did the ispe kitri mavig maya. No, they have these also these little cuts in the wood. So those cuts in the wood are going to make the water come out easily.
See, Yaakov.
Yeah.
So the whole Nissan, all the stores in Gula, Meir Sharm were filled. Every store was selling shpuds with hechsherim on them. Like everybody sells the Daled Minim before they load it up. Every store was selling. They needed 1 million shpuds.
Yeah, but the problem is that you only have one type, Remind, it seems.
Well,
they didn't allow any other type.
That's why you had Poiskim walking around with loops, looking at the Remind, the shpuds.
Yeah. A good point. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay, good. So Remind Nami is Kitri, but a Remind also has these cuts in it. So the Gemara answers she kitri. It's much more smooth, and therefore there's nothing going to drip out of it. And I don't understand the science of it, just because there's these little cuts in the wood that's going to make the liquid come out of it. But okay, yeah, I don't know. Anybody have any insight on that?
Is the liquid coming out the liquid from the tree, or the juice from the meat is going to come out, run down the thing? And that juice is going to cook.
It's going to gather in the cracks.
Yeah, it's going to run down the crack. Yeah, the same as we'll have later. When it spits off the side of the oven.
Oh, it's the liquid of the tree, and the liquid is getting onto the meat, and then you're cooking that liquid with the meat.
That's the way I understood it, but I can hear the case of the te'ena where it says mechalchal, right? No, Rashi also says it has a mayach mibifnim. I hear your pshat, but I don't think that's the put. I don't think that's
saying it's filled with sap, and the liquid.
Right,
comes
that's what
down.
Rashi says, right? It's shel egois sheyesh len mayach mibifnim. It has mayach. What is it called? The marrow is really.
That's marrow, but yeah,
right, but it's sap. The liquid, the natural liquids of the tree. But I hear what you're saying. Maybe
What if the wood is very dry, right? So where's the liquid?
I think that's what we're talking about, dry wood.
No, it's not. Article doesn't agree with you. Article says the tree has. It's clearly says it.
Okay, so I don't know. I think Avi, if it's too old, if the wood is too old, then my stomach would burn. No, it's got to have some moisture to it. No, I mean I know when you take a piece of wood to roast a hot dog, you take an old piece of wood, it's going to crack on you, and your hot dog ends up in the fire. Then you have to decide whether you want to eat it with all the ashes on it.
If you're smoking wood, the drier the better.
You gotta soak your shish kebab wood. Soak your shish kebab wood. Come on, everyone knows that.
Here now, all the bikias is coming out. All the bikias.
Everyone knows it.
Yeah, I heard that. You're right. I did soak the bamboo sticks before I made shish kebab.
Baruch Hashem.
Because they were burning if I didn't do it.
According to the big mumcha, what's the guy's name? Aaron Franklin.
Yeah, he has a whole arichas on how green wood is no good.
I didn't mamish.
Too dry is no good.
Too wet is no good. Is unbelievable. Yeah.
But you always said you err on the side of dryness.
It's the same old kid story where the middle beer is the best one. Not too dry, not too wet.
Parrots, it's very different. He's cooking with smoke. It's very different. And this is not shish kebab. Very different. This is cooking on the wood.
This is right. This is straight fire. Straight fire.
Yeah, you're talking about
what's going on.
Smoke.
Green wood will not hold the carbon. It will just bend.
Mitzi,
It needs
get
to be
the
dry.
baby.
Naftali, you got to mute.
Liner.
Go ahead.
The wood
Yeah.
needs to be dry to hold the meat. Wet wood, fresh wood is not going to hold anything. It needs to be dry.
It gotta be dry, but it can't be too dry. It's gonna snap.
Can't be old, but it has to be dry.
I hear.
It doesn't say anything about being dry.
It has
Right,
to
but
be,
it-
or it won't work.
I'm just saying, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm just saying, and nowhere does it
Why
have you
won't
said
it work?
anything
It's a
about
fresh
being
one.
dry.
About that, it won't work. Who told you?
I'm telling you, I know from my experience. All I can tell you is hot dogs. That's my
Of
experience.
course
Okay?
it'll work. You take a fresh thing out of the thing, it works also. Why
I'm
wouldn't it
telling you,
work?
if you take a piece of dry wood and you roast a hot
Dry
dog
wood,
on
I
a
agree,
fire, it's
doesn't
gonna
work.
snap the wood.
Correct. Wet would
So
work. Who says
Okay.
it can't be wet?
Right. No, because if it's too wet, then there's too much liquid coming out. Then it's cooking the carbon, not
That's
roasting
what
it.
the Gemara says, right? That if it
Right.
has, if it's too wet, you can't use it. That's exactly what it says.
Yeah. Okay, good. Viba Yasema. Or we can say that Benagva Bashata de Lespe Kitri. Oh, so it's a piece of wood from a pomegranate, which doesn't really have kitri in it yet. It doesn't have these knots or these cuts, whatever it is. It's too young. So therefore, it's not a problem. So now, according to this teretz, the Gemara is really limiting which type of spits you can. Now you really need hashkacha, right? It's got to be toich shana, right? Of when it grew. Oh, bava'ika piski, right? But there's you cut the tree, right? You have to cut it somewhere, so there's liquid's going to come out of that. The mafik piski levar. No, but that part, the part that you cut the wood, that you stick out, you keep outside of the animal. Okay, so
This
that's
Gemara-
basically what are you saying?
It's clear from this Gemara that you can cut down a fruit tree for a use.
Very good. Yes.
No, who said you cut
Maybe
down the
it
whole?
fell
Wait
down.
a second. Who said you cut down the whole tree, Gershon?
Oh, maybe you just
Where
cut
do you
down
see
the
that?
branches.
Where do you see that?
You need. Have you ever seen a pomegranate tree that's less than
Not
a year old?
really. No,
Nope,
I've
never
seen
saw it.
No.
I've
They're
seen
not- they're-
pomegranate. I
Haven't
no.
seen those in Manhattan anytime. Nope.
A 30-year-old pomegranate tree isn't gigantic. It's quite a small tree.
If you want to
year-old
get
tree.
technical, it's a bush, really. It's not even a tree.
There you go. So less than a year old is tiny, and you need a branch that you basically take uprooting the whole tree to get the trunk. There is no branch big enough to hold a lamb.
I hear. I don't know, but anyways, so you're saying this is negative Rabbi Yehuda Chassid?
Well, it's a fruit
You're
tree.
saying
It's
acid
Baltashis.
doichalot?
Saying-
So you're saying
No,
I'm saying
fruit
there's
tree,
no
no.
Baltashis.
Me'ikar adin,
Gershon,
there's
so now
no-
you're coming to acid doichaloisa, said, but it's not beidna.
Right. Okay, you're getting into that. But Lamaisa, right, but Lamaisa, Me'ikar adin, if you have a reason to cut down the fruit tree, that's perfectly fine. Rabbi Yehuda Chassid came along and said that you shouldn't. Oh, but a lot of Rabbi Yehuda Chassid are fakert from Gemaras. Right? Okay, fine. It's a good
That
order.
one, staying off topic a little bit, I Grata just saw this week that there's a wood plank that they have with grooves in it to make steak, and you pour wine underneath. So maybe Taka something with the grooves doesn't allow the juice. I don't know.
Maybe Taka. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, that could be.
But this one's saying fakert. You fill the grooves with wine, and it goes into the meat.
No,
But I
because
guess
the
if you don't
groove.
fill it with
No, so
liquid,
the
maybe
groove
it-
because the groove holds the water and then it cooks it through water.
Right. I don't know.
How do you have, if a tree is so small, a pomegranate 1-year-old tree, how is that holding up an entire carbon pesach? I mean,
I don't know.
just
I hear.
going off of Gershie's comment.
Maybe that proves what Gershon's saying that it's not just a branch. It's got to be something that's substantial. It has to be something substantial. I got to grow a lot of pomegranate
Maybe it's
trees
a
for
very
this.
small
Yeah, I
goat.
would venture to say you
The
need
truth
a
is, it
couple-
is a small. You're right, Yossi. You're right because it has to be less than a year old too, right? The lamb and the sheep have to be less than a year old, so they're not going to be that big. That's the truth.
You would
Okay.
you would need a couple dozen pomegranate trees to cook a goat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't say that I thought that I was mechamed to any of these kashas today when I was looking at the Gemara. Okay, very good, fine. Masnisin. So then we say Masnisin like Rabbi Yehuda. Our mission is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Tan Rabbi Yehuda. Imer kishem sheshvud shel eitzain in nisraf. Just like
See, Yaakov, I never
yeah.
did this during Geshia. Like you, I just called up a picture of a pomegranate tree. They're incorrect. The cover is incorrect.
Okay, what? It's a big tree.
It's big enough to put sheep guys on it. Yeah.
I will send you a picture of an actual live pomegranate tree.
Yeah, here's one over here. Whatever.
All right.
Yeah, but that one's probably 30 years old. A 1-year-old tree is in a planter still. Its twigs you could snap in half. It wouldn't even hold a
Carrots
hot
and
dog.
troll, they grow much bigger. That's the answer.
That's true. The truth is, fruits are supposed to
There
grow.
we
They're
go.
supposed to be.
I had one in my Dira, a 30-year-old pomegranate tree. It was tiny.
Yeah, but that's
compared to a 30-year-old tree. It's a small
Hey,
tree.
that was from the Nebuch plants, no.
You ever see a Yerushalmi cat? So I guess the Yerushalmi pomegranate tree is also small. Okay, I don't know. Anyways, so we're saying Maslis is like Rabbi Yehuda. Tan Rabbi Yehuda Mikashem sheshvud shel eitz and in Nisraf, just like a shvud of an eitz doesn't get burned, right? Meaning it doesn't. It's not. It's not going to burn, right? That's what we're saying. Kach shvud shel matches ein marsiach. So a metal spit is not going to become too hot anyways. So he's disagreeing, and he's saying that we're not worried about cham miktzasei cham kuloi. Amruloi zeh cham miktzasei cham kuloi, right? When part of it gets hot, the whole thing gets hot, which we know that's the way metal is. But this, the wooden one, part of it gets hot, the rest of it will not get hot, right? Anybody that you take what do you call it when you take soup with?
Ladle.
A ladle, right? You take a metal ladle, it gets hot after you leave it in the soup. You take a plastic ladle, it doesn't. Okay, so what's the practical, just agav, to take a practical halacha out of this? When you stick a spoon into a tray, let's say you take a milchik spoon and you put it into fleishik food. You didn't stick the whole spoon in there, so do you have to kasher the whole spoon or only the part that went in? Let's say you took a milchik spoon, right? You use it for macaroni and cheese. 5 minutes later, you stuck it into your soup. But you don't stick the entire spoon in, you stick half the spoon in, right? Do you have to kasher the whole spoon or do you just have to kasher half the spoon? So we pasken cham miktzasei cham kuloi. The taste, the treif taste, even though you only stuck the ladle part of the spoon in, it's going to travel all the way up, right? And therefore you have to kasher it. Yeah, so that's basically the way we pasken. However, and this comes up very, very often, and it's an important halacha to know in kashrus in the kitchen, right? That we don't say cham miktzasei cham kuloi when the taste goes in. Meaning, what's the first question that a rabbi will ask if you stuck a milchik spoon into a fleishik food? So after he asks, is it ben yoimai or not? But let's say it's a ben yoimai, or it was used that day. So what's the next question? Is there 60 times more food than the spoon, right? So is it 60 times more food than the spoon, the entire spoon? Or is it 60 times more than the part of the spoon that got stuck into the food? For that, we paskin that you only need 60 times more than the part that went into the spoon. Meaning, we say cham miktzasei cham kuloi, but to go in. We don't say cham miktzasei cham kuloi to go out.
So that means I could kasher a wooden handled knife?
Why not?
Because wood you can't kasher, but
You
really
could kasher.
only the handle. You could?
Unless it has a lot of grooves in it.
Wait, we don't say cham miktzasei cham kuloi on a wooden handle.
No, we don't. But if it's a wooden handle attached to metal, and usually the metal goes inside the wood, right? So you have to kasher all the way up. So anyways, again, just was saying that when
that's what I was asking, right?
Yeah, so when it excretes, we don't say cham miktzasei cham kuloi. But in order to kasher it, we would say cham miktzasei cham kuloi. Okay, fine. Benoisen is krov, and you put, right, so we have a machlokes. Where do you put the legs, right? The krov is the legs and the insides, right? Either you stuff the animal or you put it on the top. So Tanari B'Shmol kareu tuch tuch, right? This is he called it tuch tuch. That's a sound that it makes when it's cooking, when you stuff it inside. So tuch tuch is and that's the shita that holds you stick the legs and the insides inside the animal. Reb Tarfon kareu gedi makulis. Tarfon called it a helmeted gedi, a gedi with a helmet. Why? Because you put all the stuff on top of the gedi, and therefore it looks like it's wearing a helmet. Yeah, fine. So Tana Rabbanon ezu gedi makulis to also lecho b'leile pesach b'zman hazeh. So we know that we're not allowed to eat any roasted meat on Pesach by night. So what type of meat is this? Now, if the Olam remembers when we learned about 20 blot ago that's tali and minig whether you have roasted meat. So we said that the Mishnah Brura says that whole machlokes, that whole hanhaga, where some do have roasted meat on Pesach and some don't, that's only talking about if you don't do it exactly like the korban Pesach. But l'chol hadayis, you're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to do it exactly like the korban Pesach. That's not tali and minig. So that's what the Gemara is saying. Exactly how are you not allowed to do it? So eze gedim kulas das lecha b'leili Pesach b'zman hazeh. Kol shetzalo kulay ke'echad. Right. That's if you roast everything at the same time. Nechtach mimenu aver. But let's say you cut off one limb. Nishlak mimenu aver. Or you boil one min. Ein ze gedim kulas. That's not considered a gedim kulas because one limb is missing. Right, so therefore nobody's gonna mistake that for korban Pesach in Chutz La'aretz. So then the Gemara says, "Hashta yesham or nechtach mimenu aver." If you said that when you cut off one limb, dafagav the kamatvilei ba'adei, even though you're roasting it together with the rest of the korban, amrit lo, you said you can't do it. Nishlak mivai. So if you boil up one of the limbs, do you need to say that? I mean, he was saying that if you cut off one limb and you cook it with roasting it, it's no good, right? Meaning it's not pshat, it's no good. It's not considered like the korban Pesach. So boiling one limb is going to look like korban Pesach? Of course not. So Rav Sheish says sheshalko b'mechuber. No, it's talking about where he boiled it when it was still attached. I have no idea how you do that. I guess you stick one leg into a pot. Okay, I don't know. Sounds a little complicated to me. Amar Rabba, Hamil Yulsa Shari. Oh, 1 second. So we need a hakdama before this. So now we're gonna basically, there's something called melicha, which is a lost art, at least for today's generation, right? So all meat needs to be salted before you could eat it, but roasting it will a lot of times, and most blood will come out when you just roast it on the fire and you don't need salt, or you need very minimal amount of salt. So the question is, if you take meat and you stick it inside, you stuff it inside the animal, and then you put it on the fire, so then it's going to draw out the blood, right? But then the blood's going to go right back into the animal. So how does that work? So that's going to be the Gemara. That's what the Gemara is going to be dealing with. So Amar Rabba, Hai Mul Yisa Shari. If you take an animal and you stuffed it, you put all the meat inside the animal and then you roasted it, it's mutter, right? But it's going to absorb blood. How can you do that? It's going to absorb blood into the animal.
But isn't that the way you kosher liver?
Yes, that's the way you kosher liver on the fire.
Doesn't
right.
soak the
liver,
blood
it's a lot of blood. What? No.
Right, and it doesn't.
No, because no, liver, you put it over we're actually going to discuss it on Amud Beis. You have to do liver correctly. If you do it incorrectly, You're right. It will go back in. But liver, it's just straight on the fire. But let's say you took liver and put it inside Frankenblank or liver and blank, let's say, right? So then you put it on the fire. So then it's going to go into the blood is going to go into the blank, right? So that's what's going on here. But you're right. If you take the liver straight up and roast it, then that won't be a problem. We'll see more about that on the base. So Amar Lei, so he said now, and also a very important rule in Hilchas Kashrus, Kabayla Kach Palta. No, the same way it absorbed, it's going to excrete it. Meaning the blood goes into the meat, and then it's going to go right back out. The fire might push it in, but the fire is going to take it right out, which is what we know about Hilchas Kashrus, right? The way you kasher something is the way it went in. Meaning, if you stuck a spoon into a boiling hot soup, so then it went in through the medium of water. So then all you have to do is take the spoon and boil water, because that's the way it went in. If you roasted something treif, then you have to kasher with fire. Like that's why you can't throw hot water to kasher your stove for stovetop or your ovens for Pesach. You can't just throw hot water because it didn't go in through water, it went in through fire. So here we're saying that the blood, yes, it gets absorbed into the rest of the animal, but the same way the fire made it go absorb, the fire is also going to get it out. So the Gemara says, name of the Gemara is going to try to bring a few proofs to this. You put right the first Tana in our Mishna says you take the legs and the insides and you put it in, you stuff the animal. My time, or what's with the blood? My time, isn't it because we say that it absorbs the blood, but then it also will excrete it? So you see, our Mishna is very clearly holding Kabbalah Kapalta. So Amrei Shani Hasam Kimadika Pesach Shchitu the Mechalchal. No, there it was shechted the animal, right? So you have a big hole by the neck, right? So then it's gonna fall out from there. It's gonna all the blood's gonna go out of there. So made of divey, right? It's gonna flow out on Amud base. The blood is gonna flow out, right? Fine. So that's we slug up that proof. Name of say another proof. Halev kairo you might see as damai. The heart, you tear it, right? You have to cut it open, and then you pull out the blood. Like karoi, but if you didn't, then you cooked it. You can cook it after. I'm sorry, you can tear it open and let the blood out after you cooked it. And how can that work? My time, so it must be that we're going to say the heart when it absorbed it, and then it's going to excrete it the same way. So Gemara says no, you can't prove anything from heart either. Shani leiv the shaya. You leiv heart is different because it's smooth, right? So since it's smooth, it doesn't absorb the blood nearly as well, right? Which also has practical halacha to it. Let's say you drop milk, right, cold on cold, which is going to be 2 days from now. Daf. If you take cold milk and it falls on top of a chicken, I had somebody did this today. Well, I think it was cheese on top of chicken, right? So it's cold. What's the din? You just rinse it off, right? Oh, why don't you say that the milk went into the chicken? Right? Because it's smooth. So since it's smooth, it doesn't penetrate. But if you have cooked chicken, which gets cracks in it, then even though it's cold, we're afraid that the milk went through the chicken, and you have more of a problem.
Is chicken different than meat or just chicken?
Meat? No, I was just saying chicken. Meat would be the same. No, meat. It depends. You have to look at the meat. Depends what type of cut meat.
Doesn't meat have grooves in it?
Depends which type, from what I understand. Some does, some type of meat do, and some types don't. Okay, so then Gemara says, "Aini, it's not true, right?" Rabin Saba Tafle Hahi Bar Goizla Rav. So Rabin Saba, right, the older Rabin, he made.
How come we read those parentheses?
What do you say?
How come we read those parentheses?
I don't know. Sometimes you read it, sometimes I don't read it. It's not. There's no issur in reading parentheses.
I thought. Okay.
Happens to be that some take
to
it
see
out.
Who was up.
What?
It was to see who was up.
Okay, we got one up, right? Okay, good. For Rav and Saba, Tafle Ahipar Goizel Rav. So what he did is he made schnitzel. Essentially, he breaded a bird for Rav. Vamarle, and he told him, Imaili Tafle Havli Ve'echel. Right? Meaning if the tafle, the breading of it is good, give it to me and I'm going to eat it. Now, what's a pshat? Isn't it going to take out some of the blood from the chicken? It's out here. It wasn't chicken. It was a bird, right? So isn't it going to absorb it? But he doesn't care. So it must be because kabbalah kachpote, the way it goes into the bread and it gets in and it will get excreted the same way. So the Gemara says hahi besmida the mafra. No, that's talking about a very fine flour, right? Silas. Rashi says it's silas, right? To just fine flour. So therefore, that's it's what do you call it? The mafir. So which it's very has a lot of crumbs to it, and therefore the blood can escape. Meaning it's not the blood can make it out from the schnitzel, but if it would be a very thick covering, I guess like a bareka or a frankenblank or something like that, then it would hold in the blood. Okay, so now Rava ikla leberesh kaluza, Rava child the beresh kaluza, v'taflu lebar avza, and they made him a schnitzel with goose. Amar Eloi de Chazisi the zig kizuza chivare loy achli minay. He said, had I not seen that there was juice coming out of it that was clean, that was white, like white glass, I wouldn't have eaten from it. Meaning mashma, that if it would be red, he wouldn't eat it. Right? He saw the juice and it was clear, so clearly there was no blood in it. And if we say kabbalah kachpote, my iri kizag, who cares if it's clear? Even if it's not clear, even if he sees red, kabbalah kachpote. So one answers no. Hasam bichivarta tesharer. That's talking about white flour, which is very strong, and therefore that's going to hold in the blood. So that's why he said his din. So now we're getting into that there's different types of flours, right? Different type, depending on what type of flour it is that you have, that's whether it'll hold in the blood. The hilchas, what's the halacha? The smida right? If it's soyless, if it's fine flour, bein asmik, bein loy asmik sharia, whether it's red or whether it's not red, it's going to be mutter, right? Because it's very thin and we know the blood can get out. The chivarta, if it's white flour, izik kezuza chivare shari. If it's clear like white glass, then it's going to be mutter. Eloi aser, but if it's going to be red, it's going to be aser because that flour is going to hold in the blood more. The shar kamchim, but other types of flours, asmik aser. If it's red, is aser. Loy asmik shari. If it's not red, then it's going to be mutter. Right? Sometimes this does come up. People will text pictures of their chickens or their meat, which seems to have a what's the word?
Reddish
A
reddish hue.
Yeah, or it's got a lot of red. There's like a pocket of blood. But so usually they just say to cut it out, not either cut it or drain it, and then it's okay. Fine. Then high mulis.
Steak and it's very juicy, which is essentially just blood. Why is that okay?
What are you saying?
What?
When you make a steak and it's the juice is coming.
So a lot of times, right? No, it's hard to know.
Not blood. That's not blood. That's
that's not blood. There's a different. I forgot what it is. There's a different word for that.
Yeah, but it's hard to know. We're gonna get
It's
to
myoglobin. Hemoglobin is blood. Myoglobin is juice.
No, I meant there's a Hebrew. There's a halachic term for that.
Yes, we're going to see. I think what you're referring to, we're going to see weiter. But it's very hard for the layman to know the difference between whether that's legit blood or that's not.
Wait a second. The meat is soaked and salted. So the whatever blood was there has been.
If the layman doesn't know.
Yes, a lot of times that's what it is.
Well, no. What I'm saying, how do you know that the food that you're eating was actually shechted?
How do you know you're what do you call it? You're relying on the.
So I don't understand. They have a chazaka. You believe them on the shchita. You don't believe them on the malicha.
Of course, you believe them on the malicha.
Who said no?
No, but you're saying you would cut it out or whatever.
No, but sometimes they make mistakes, and sometimes there's a you can clearly see that it's blood, and there's a chashash that it's an accumulation of blood. So I mean, these things.
But doesn't chazaka go until you can prove differently? You have the chazaka, you can rely on it. But if you open up, there's a vein and there's blood coming out of that vein.
Oh, so we're going to see the veins in the next Gemara.
If they're roasting it, doesn't it not need malicha?
It needs a basic malicha. Yeah, we're gonna get to. We're gonna see. Let's hold off. Let's hold off and see the next Gemaras, and then maybe it'll get clearer or unclear. One of the two.
I think we need to do a practical run with this, hands-on, like the Erev. We're supposed to do a tour, but I think we should really try with the lamb and all the different trees and everything else.
100%, Parrot. So maybe arrange it for the Siyam. It'll be a week before Pesach. It'll be mamish. You can make a whole town zach and whatever.
We need a sheikhet though. Who's going? Is Icky going to be the sheikhet?
I'll find. I believe either I'm going to be there for the Siyam before Pesach, so I'll find the lamb, Parrots.
There you go. Okay, maybe Taka. Okay. Anyway, so high mulyasa, right? So this. Right, the stuffed animal, not the stuffed. Stuffed with meat, not with a stuffed animal that the olam on this shear would like to eat, not the classic stuffed animal, right? So I mul so manda asar afilu puma letachas. The one who says that it's asar, that's even if you put the animal facing down, so that the chayra, like the Gemara said before, all the blood can drain out of its mouth. It's still asar. Even one that holds its mutter, even if the mouth is up. And mulyasa stuffed animal is mutter, even if the mouth is facing up. Right? So we say because the way it absorbed is the way it's going to be excreted. Okay.
Why does the Gemara use the term mutter? What was the mitzvah? We're talking about the mitzvah, how they did it.
Right? No, I think this is not lav dafka Pesach.
Oh, this is Stam. We're talking about Malika. Getting the blood out.
Yeah. Now, parrots, you ready for this Gemara? Because we actually used to go to a store in Yerushalayim that sold this stuff. Yeah, umtza, that's raw meat. right? So that's raw meat that has discoloration. There's a lot of red in it. Yeah. So the question is, where does that blood come from, right? Bay is testicles. If you have a cow's or an animal's testicles, that also holds a lot of blood, right? Mizraki, and Mizraki is how do you touch it? Arteries, right? So now these all have blood in them. These have a lot of blood in them. So again, let's just understand the basic halacha. The basic halacha is that if it's natural blood, really me'ikar adin, it's not a problem. It's only when it's unnatural blood, meaning meat has blood that flows through it. That deraisa, that's fine. It's a derabanan that it's a problem. But these other things, the arteries and the testicles and the raw meat that seems to have a lot of blood in it, that you have to get rid of, right? So these things. So pligi bar Rav Acha Ravina. So as a machlokes, Rav Acha Ravina had to get rid of it. B'chala Torah, then there's an interesting fact here that goes on in every machlokes, Rav Acha Ravina and Shas. B'chala Torah kula, right, through the whole Torah, which obviously means Torah Shabbat Peh, Rav Acha l'chumra v'Ravina l'kula. Every time there's a machlokes, Rav Acha and Ravina, so Rav Acha is the machmir and Ravina is the mekel. The hilchasa Ravina l'kula, and the halacha is always like Ravina l'kula. Levar mehani, except for these three cases. The levar mehani tlas, except for these three cases, the Rav Acha l'kula v'Ravina l'chumra. Rav Acha is the mekel and Ravina is the machmir. The hilchasa Rav Acha l'kula, and we're going to pasken like Rav Acha l'kula. So we're always paskening l'kula. It's just a matter of who holds what. Okay, so now the Gemara goes through all these cases. Hi umtza da asmik, this raw meat that's very red, right? Chatche, so what do you do? How do you get rid of the blood? Chatche, you have to cut it open. Umalche, and then you put salt there. Afil l'kedera shari, and then you could even use it to cook in a pot, right? But you can't do the regular salting. You have to cut it open. I mean, you can't just do the regular salting where you cover the whole meat with salt and finished. Right? You have to actually cut open that area where there seems to be extra blood, put salt in it, and then you could even cook it. Shafte b'shvuda shari, and if you put it on a spit, it's also mutter because that's the blood. The fire is going to get rid of the blood. Made of dayev, right? Because made of dayev, because the blood's going to flow out of it. Achse agumre. So what happens if you just put it straight on the coals, right? Dovi, this is I think what you're referring to. Like, let's say you put, meaning when you do the livers, you can't put it straight on the coals. You got to put it on a grate or something, right? A grate, which that grate is treif, right? That grate remains treif. So achse agumre. If you put it straight on the coals, that's a machlokes Rav Ravina. Chad asar v'chad shari. One says asar, one says mutter. Manda asar. Meaning, what should be asar? You put it straight on the coals, it should be much hotter. Manda asar matzmis tzamas. What happens is the coals make it shrink, and then when it shrinks, it traps the blood in it. Umanda shari mishav shoiv. And the one that says that it's mutter, no, it says that the heat pulls out the blood just the same way it does on a spit. And we pasken that it does draw it out, so therefore it will be allowed. And the same thing with the bei. You have to cut it open and salt it. And then even to cook it will be mutter. And if you hang it on a shvud, it's mutter. Made of dayev. I'm sorry, made of dayev because it draws out the blood. Achsinu agumri, and to put it straight on the coals, believe it, right? Just a repeat of the previous Gemara. Chad asa v'chad shari. One says also, one says mutamada, also matzmas tzamas. The one that says also is because it shrinks it and it traps the blood. Umada shari mishav shari. The one that says mutter is because it draws out the blood. V'chein mizruke, and the same thing with the what do you call it? The arteries, right? Chatche umalche, you have to cut them open, salt them. Afilu l'kedera shari, and then even for a pot, even to cook it would be mutter, and you would not have to put it onto an open flame. Talya b'shvuda, if you hang it on a spit, beis hashchita l'tatoi. Then you put the beis hashchita to the bottom, towards the bottom. Shari, because made of dayev. It's mutter because it's gonna draw out the blood. It's gonna flow out through there, through the opening of the beis hashchita. Achse agomre, put it on the coals. Pligi Rav Acha Ravina. The machlokes Rav Ravina. Chad asa v'chad shari. One says asa, one says mutter. Manda asa matzvus tzamas. The one that says asa is because it shrinks it and it traps the blood. Manda shari mishav shav. It draws it out. V'hilvus mishav shav, and we hold that it's mishav shav. And right, so in all these three cases, we're mekel. Fine. Hi umtza the asmik. So you have a piece of meat that's very red, right? Chalya aser. It's the juice that comes out of it is aser. Yeah, lo yasmik. But if it didn't turn red, then chal yashari, then the juice that comes out of it is mutter. Right, so it's all tali in how red it is. Now, how is somebody supposed to know exactly how red is red? I don't know, right? Because that's what the guys are saying, right? A lot of the salt, the liquid that comes out of the meat is, it looks like blood, but it's not. It's really the water and the salt residue or whatever is left.
That stuff never clots. That red stuff that comes out on the napkin that they put under the if you buy meat, they have like that. What is the little diaper that they put under the meat?
You're right. It doesn't clot. That's true. That is true. It's a good point.
Yaakov.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know what it is, but I wrote down next to Amsa, the last time we learned this, is that it's a hematoma. I don't know if that helps.
A hematoma, the type of a hematoma is a pooling of blood.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
well,
so
you should know,
It makes sense.
In the raw meat world, when the meat is discolored and it looks black and blue almost, or purple, they call that a black and blue mark. It's safe to eat. It's just not tasty. But what it is
marbling. Is that marbling?
No, marbling is fat. This is like it's a discoloration in the meat. It's basically.
I've seen that. Yeah, I always thought
the guy explained it to me. No, that's basically the animal has a black and blue mark before it was shechted. So it's safe to eat, but it just doesn't taste good, and you should get a refund.
I hear. Okay, now if you put enough sauce and rub on it, you're not going to see it anyways.
You know, Gratiaco, there's a Machlokes with all the people. Most of them hold that if you let the meat sit afterwards, that when you cook it, it contracts the juices inside the meat. That's why they say to let it sit afterwards, so the juices come back out.
Oh yeah.
Similar to this Machlokes, yeah.
Okay, that's very good.
Parents, when's your shear on this?
Before Pesach, he's going to give a shear.
Right after the Erevin outing.
By the siyum, he's gonna, Okay, Ravina Omar, afilu loy asmik nami, even if it didn't turn red, chalya asur, it's the juice is asur. E after the less slave shurai kadam, it's not possible that it doesn't have some red blood. Right, so that's a big chumrah. Now I don't know. According to Ravina, I have no idea how would you ever eat meat. You'd have to pulverize it in order to make sure there's nothing red coming out of there. But okay, that says chumrah. Fine. A new thing. Amar lei. Along the same lines. Amar lei mar bar amemer le Ravashi. Mar bar amemer said to Ravashi, Abba megamalei gemui. My father, he would swallow. He would eat it. He didn't have any problem with this, right? Ikata amri Ravashi kufei megamalei gemui. Ravashi himself swallowed it. Okay. So Amar lei mar bar amemer le Ravashi. Mar bar amemer said to Ravashi, Abba, hai chalad the chalad pechada zimna. Any vinegar which they soaked meat in it once, su loy tani chaliti be. He did not use it to soak. I guess he would soak his meat in vinegar to draw out the blood, but he only did it once. It was only one time use. He couldn't reuse the vinegar. Ma'ishna mechala mitama de chalitin me. Why is it different than regular vinegar? That we don't use it, we don't soak it. You can't use vinegar instead of salt. So we say hasam isay, by the weak vinegar. There's two types of vinegar. Seemingly, it seems like there's a weak one and there's a strong one. So it's isa lekayua de pera be'ene. There you see the strength of it says fruit, right? But I guess it ultimately if it's the vinegar comes from a fruit, right? So the strength of it is there.
Cider vinegar,
or grapes, or grape, whatever it is, or from wheat. But here, right, what's a used vinegar that was already used once, the strength of it is no longer there, and therefore it's too weak to do anything to pull out vinegar. So that's the difference between a one-time use vinegar and then using it a second time. Okay, so that's we'll stop over here. All right. Thank you to everybody for the insights on all this roasting stuff. Yeah. All right.
Jack, so what we said before, the roasting, I thought was you had to do within like 3 days if you're going to roast it and not do malicha.
Correct. You have 3 days. True.
By the way, Yaakov, according to your mother, they used to have it shechted in Boston, and then they would do their own malicha.
Right, there's nothing wrong. As long as it goes like Elio said.
No, I'm saying, but Icky was saying that you trusting the hashkacha, this and that. That the shechita might have been fine, but somebody else could have done the malicha.
No, but nowadays it's not like that. My grandmother also parrots. She used to get the stuff and they would do the malicha. But nowadays it's all done under the same hashkacha.
If you go to Costco, what Icky's saying is right. They sell kosher salt. L'chayra, that product was invented when people salted their own meat.
My mother salted in the house. I saw the salting boards. What?
Yeah, that's what they used to do, Rabar. I'm just saying, if you were saying that.
Yeah, the butcher didn't salt. The butcher just sold you kosher chickens and kosher meat, and you salted in your house. Yeah.
No, but parrots. I was saying nowadays the kashrus agencies are obviously doing malicha for you.
Yeah, could be. I'm saying that, but it's also possible that you had a shechita from somebody and passed it on. By the way, it's Yaakov.
No, the store parrots. Excuse me. The supermarkets did their own. They do their own malika. I mean, I don't know what nothing can tell you about errands, but when I worked in Kosher City or whatever, they would get in big chunks of meat. The butcher would butcher them, and then they would salt them in the back of the kitchen. They would get 4 quarters and whatever their things are called, and they would chop them up and then do malika.
I don't think they do. They do malicha in the grocery stores. Nah, I don't think so.
Almost no one nowadays is getting sides of beef. They're processing it to the.
I'm telling you, when I worked here 25 years ago, they did sides of beef.
Oh, back then, yeah, I hear.
Or my God got sides of beef. They got whole big, huge things.
Yeah,
the only place that still does it.
It comes
salted or not salted.
Oh, I don't think they salted themselves.
No, they do. I think
Gourmet Glad salted himself, really?
Yeah, the only place.
So we take a class trip. We could take a class trip.
There we go.
I'll find out.
I think Brox used to salt. That I know. Brox salted himself. When Brox was running, he was salting himself. That I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was his thing.
He would get his own runs
before the
if
end.
he was getting from a normal Schlachthouse meat that was not salted.
Yeah.
I just remember he was salting himself. I remember it took to working. I remember him busy with it. I don't know if he did it all the time.
What exactly is the process of salting?
I think he owned his own shop house somewhere.
Yeah.
I think it was private. I think it was private shechita. I don't think it was from a commercial.
I can tell you at least the last 5 years that he had that store, he was not salting. He did have a place in Missouri, I think, something like that. That he tried to do his own thing because whatever. I'm not going to get into that now, but
don't ask questions.
Whatever. But bottom line, he has not. He did not.
I mean, can we get into it now?
All right.
If the recording has stopped, no.
So Yaakov or Mr. Carmel. So this is way back when we were buck from 50 years ago. They would do the shechita in Colorado, in Denver.
Yes, they did. Yeah. Leo, you got on mute.
They did it.
If they threw it out, then it's in garbage.
That's not me. I was on mute. That's not me.
Well, up in the morning.
Aaron,
Aaron Kaplan.
What?
Aaron Akoyan, mute.
All right. So Yaakov, quick question. How early do you have to start to burn stuff, by the way, before we hear the story?
Yossi.
I just need to plan my first.
They were checked in Denver, and sometime along the trip, how much you have from Yaakov? 55 hours?
72 me'ikar adin, but could be they were machmer. You have to wash it down, right?
Yeah, so sometimes they would have to stop and wash it down. Or a lot of the truck drivers, they used to take amphetamines so they could make the run from Denver to New York in under 55 hours so they wouldn't have to stop and wash it.
That's crazy.
They would give out
they told us. I don't know what they did.
The Schlachthouses would give out lists of rabbis across the country of who to call in which city when you needed your truck hose down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is malicha because it's the only way to get the blood out, or is there other ways and we just use malicha because halachically?
No, the only way to get it out is to roast it.
They haven't come any other ways in all the years of chemicals or anything that could take out the blood?
Nope.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah, so that's what I want to know what exactly is the salting process.
Hello,
What
I need to know
exactly
what
is-
time.
Is the salting? What is it? What happens during the salting process? How does it
I
work?
saw it once. There's a bunch
Basically,
of
you
salt,
have to rinse. You have to. Well, Leo could probably tell you better, but you could rinse. They rinse it, then they put a layer of salt on it, and they leave it there. How long do they leave it there for?
I don't remember.
If you
that.
Google it,
minutes?
if you Google it on the YouTube, they have Lubavitch has a whole thing on kosher.
You mean
That they
Goyim
throw
don't take the blood out of their meat?
No, according to my wife, she said that some of her coworkers told her that they would buy not kosher chicken and bite into it and blood would come squirting out of it.
You talk to all the guys, it's the one thing they don't like at the kosher steakhouses. They say it's very dry.
You're
Yeah,
saying
you
the
should
kosher
know,
meat
Siakam,
blood is juicier, you're saying?
Siakam, the
what they all
white
say. I don't know.
salty. One of the presidents, Siakam, used to take his steaks and throw it directly on the charcoal, on the fire. I think it was Eisenhower. That's what he was known for, his T-bone steak thrown directly on the coal.
I've made steak like that. It tastes fine.
It's delicious. Fine, it's delicious. As long as you're using wood.
The Lo Yehudim like kosher chicken, a lot of them, because it tastes better.
All right.
It's probably because of the soaking and salting.
Could be.
Avi, that's because it's blessed by the rabbi.
Yeah, exactly. I doubt that.
Okay.
What was your question, Yossi?
Oh, I needed to know Purim this year. How early do you have to eat the meal?
Me'ikar adin, you're supposed to start it before chatzos, if you can.
Look at this guy. He's mamish icing in the
No,
mitzvah.
you have to finish at a certain time or no?
No. As long as you start it before, you should really just start it before.
You have to wash before chatzos. Yeah.
I'm so proud of you. Shloshim yom kind of machag. You're mamish icing.
No, but
Purim's in
if you
2.5 weeks. You know what I mean?
If you missed chatzos, then you could still go up until what do you call it? Until what?
3 weeks.
No,
that's 3 weeks from Friday.
Till a half hour before whatever. To Mincha Ketana, that was
So what? The 1:30 about, huh?
What?
So like 1:30.
You have to worry about mincha?
Yeah, you should definitely daven mincha before the Suda, without a doubt.
How you doing that?
Not if you're starting before chatzos.
Oh, you can't. No, if you start it before chatzos, then you don't. If you start before
What
chatzos,
about
then
chakras, Siakam? Should you daven chakras before?
yeah, I think you should. And you're gonna
You can't start the Suda. I mean, drinking you can't do before chatzos. You can start the Suda.
Yeah.
Is this the new halacha? You can't drink before chatzos on Purim?
No, before mincha.
Why is that different than any other day?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, if you know you're going to be sober later, so then it's okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right.
You should know, I had mamish today. Today, last year they started with the shilas of Megillah laning for people with the corona. Last year they were asking Purim, and today somebody asked about it again. I was like, what? Is this a year of this craziness already? It was mamish. It was like wild. Like, what? I can't believe it's a year. Yeah.
Rav Shachter just put out Purim chuvas again.
Who?
Rav Shachter yesterday. Yeah, he put out Purim chuvas.
I want to check it out. Forward it to me, please.
I will.
Yeah.
There's irony there. Where's it
Fine.
left?
Yeah, he left. Yeah.
Anybody know how Rabbi Canner's son is doing?
Nope.
Just
I
had
didn't
to
know he's
look
not
for
well.
Just had to tell him for him yesterday. Doesn't look well.
Which son?
It's one that's living in Eretz Yisrael, I believe.
How old is he?
I don't know.
I think he's my age.
The COVID thing?
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Yeah,
Everybody that's getting sick in Eretz Yisrael has not been making out of it.
I know.
Yaakov Goldfeder got taken into the hospital on Shabbos too with COVID.
Who?
How did he get it? How did he get COVID?
From an aide.
Wow, a lot of people that happened to.
Yeah, but in America, it's not as deadly. I don't see than in Eretz Yisrael for some